Good morning, one and all. My name is Donato, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And for those of you who regularly watch my channel, this is something completely different, and so different that I need to give a bit of a prequel sort of chat, because this is the first time I've done this. I've taken on a new challenge for this year. Now, for a lot of people, if you know me regularly, I do a lot of running. So running challenges is one thing, but this is a different kind of challenge. So I've taken on this challenge, the 50 Coffee Adventure Challenge, written by Mark Wynne. Now, I've known Mark from back when I used to work in the Channel Islands. And long story short, what this is, and what this recording will be about, is that my challenge is to meet 50 new people and have a coffee, either in real person or virtual. Now, I've got my coffee here, and the person who I'm going to be speaking to, well, it's a virtual one. And he's very kindly, he said, yeah, let's go with the recording. So without further ado, let's bring in all the way, my topic, just so you know what my title is and what this is about. So we can decide a particular topic. And for me, it's about what unites us, and living not too far, as you can see in the title there, I live in Worcester in England, United Kingdom, and not far from here is Birmingham, the city of Birmingham, which will be the host city for the Commonwealth Games this summer. So I thought, wouldn't it be good to have a theme of Commonwealth and running and pizza? So it was a Commonwealth run pizza, but Commonwealth coffees. So we're going to have I'm looking to have, and this is where you can come in and join in and help as well as the thumbs up and subscribing to this channel, is that I'm looking for 50 people from the Commonwealth, either living in any of the Commonwealth countries, from the Commonwealth countries, or any association whatsoever. Your auntie might be from Singapore, or you might have a cousin in Canada, whatever. Any of these connections. There's about 54, depending on what links you look at. There's about 53, 54 nations. So I'm looking to meet 50. It'd be great to do all 53, 54, and maybe plus some. I've certainly been contacted by a lady in Zimbabwe, and which is not part of the Commonwealth at the moment, but they've been in and out. But hey, I'm open to all sorts of chats. So it's just something informal. It's connecting with people, and that's what I love to do. I love chatting with new people. And this person I've never met before ever in my life, apart from the quick pre-chat to check that the tech was working. I've never met this guy before, so I'll quickly bring in. And it seems ironic that here I am in England, and the very first person I get to speak to at this 50 Coffee Challenge is someone on the other side of the world. Yeah. Welcome, Alan. How you doing, mate?
Good evening. Bit of a time difference, Donato, so I'm not having a coffee. It's that time of the day for me, finished work, so I'm having a cold one, mate. It's summer here as well, so completely the opposite to you, mate.
It's fantastic. I've got to say, firstly, thank you so much for willingly volunteering yourself. So it was a random connection where I just put out a little "Can you help?" on my YouTube channel, and you were one of a number of people who stepped forward and says, "Yeah, I'm up for that." And we'll solve the world's problems. So thank you so much. And also thank you. And for those who are watching, you don't have to be recorded. Alan has kindly said, yeah, he's happy to be recorded. You don't have to be. If you want to be, great. If not, we can just have a chat just like this, and nobody in the world gets to see it. So, but if we do it in real, so it's morning time for me. It's 10 a.m. here in Worcester, England. And what time is it in Perth, Australia?
It's just gone 6 p.m. So
6 p.m.
It's an 8-hour time difference.
I've got to say, it warms my cockles here, thinking that here we are in two sides of the world, and for me, my theme is what unites us as people, and I certainly don't want to get into any COVID debates of what's been happening and the politics of Britain and Australia, because I think we'd need a seminar for that, wouldn't we, of what's been happening.
and Western Australia in particular. I mean, let's face it, I'm currently living in the biggest prison in the world, you know.
Oh,
So yeah, so let's steer well clear of that. Let's steer well clear of that.
I thought it was Melbourne, but anyway, that's another
They're
story.
allowed out to play. Western
Oh,
Australia,
oh,
our borders are shut to the rest of pretty much the rest of Australia as well. So, but I mean, having said that, Western Australia is pretty big.
yeah. So just to check, you're not breaking the law by Zoom, calling with me via the internet. Yeah, you're okay doing
No,
that.
as you can tell from my accent, right, I'm originally a POM from London. So of course, I'm Australian. So therefore, criminal record breaking law, part and parcel of the passport, isn't it?
Yes, I was going to say the old ones are the best ones. So
Yeah,
yes,
got to get the little dig in there at my new home.
I was going to say, g'day, mate. But I've got my cup of tea here. Well, a bit of warm water and lemon, lemon tea or whatever. And you've got some nice beer there. What is that beer, by the way? It is a beer because it's summertime for you, winter here.
James Squire, 150 lashes. It's quite nice. It's a pale ale. It's light drinking.
Is it an Aussie one?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what the alcohol. It's only 4.2%, so it's perfectly reasonable.
Light and fruity number, maybe, but I'm guessing
pre-dinner.
Pre-dinner. I'm guessing, obviously, being the summer, and I used to work with a guy, funnily enough, in Birmingham about 20 odd years ago, and he was from Perth, and originally from Perth, Australia, and I often used to say to him, "Why are you here working in Birmingham when you could be in Perth, Australia?" And he says, "The money, mate." And that was it, So obviously 20 years ago, I think in a year he earned enough to buy a property cash. I think
yes,
25 odd years ago.
It changes depending on exchange rates and the economy. You're exactly right. There are times when leaving Australia, and then other times it's like, well, actually, salaries here and the standard of living is so good that a lot of people are coming back.
Yeah.
It all just depends on what business you're in, of course, as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
For me, I just gradually moved further and further away from home, starting over 40 years ago, and this is where I've ended up so far.
Wow, it's fascinating how we've sort of connected, and we can go into what connects us. But I did see a comment that a couple of 60-year-olds. So we're both 60. So
I'm a little bit older than you, Donato, and I'll tell you right now, the connection was obviously watching YouTube videos, runners. Well, so many of them are speedy young blokes who are running times and doing things that I couldn't even do when I was their age. So whilst I enjoy their material, it's kind of not relatable. So then looking at people running similar paces to me, I end up watching a bunch of it's like, other people's, it's their wives and what have you, who they've got into running. And I'm thinking, I need to find somebody who actually understands the injuries that us old folks get, who, but is still a good runner. And that's literally how I ended up doing a Google, and your YouTube channel came up, and I was like, wow, this guy is only a little bit younger than me and running at paces that I can just about dream about, but that's aspirational. So it's like, yeah, okay, I can do this. I can get there. I'm a long way behind you, Donato. But so that was kind of what got me following your channel, was just the fact that you were at the time in your late 50s.
Yeah.
And now, of course, you've gone past 60 as well. So I've just turned 63. So I'm a couple of years older than you.
Oh, okay. Only a few years. But as we all know, age is just a number.
Oh, absolutely. My running goals are trying to beat the PBs I set 1991, 2, 3, and 4.
Wow.
Now,
so you've been running quite a while then, Alan?
No, here's the thing.
On and off. Is it on and off now? What's the story?
Well, it was on, off, on. So I started running when I was 30, living in Singapore at the time, and I was working offshore on oil rigs. Mm-hmm. So I never got the time to do proper marathon training, long runs, long blocks, because I'd go off for 4 weeks and running round a heli deck in
Could you
circles is
not do
actually not
long
good.
runs on the heli deck?
It's really. I tried it, and it's really not good for your knees.
No.
A metal surface and being at an angle going round. I nearly fell off a rig one night, and then I realised it was actually dangerous going up there late at night running on my own because a gust of wind blew.
Yeah,
They have nets around. They have nets around the head. Well, I actually ended up in the net hanging on.
Wow.
And I was thinking, actually, if I fell off the rig at night, nobody would have known I'd
Nobody
gone.
would know.
No. So I started running when I was about 30. My 5K, 10K times weren't bad. So I've got, 5K PB, 17 and a bit minutes, 38-minute 10K. But my marathon times I was a 4-hour marathon runner, right?
Right.
I was 35, found out I had ankylosing spondylitis, which is a form of arthritis, inflammatory disease, and it affected my hip joints, and you get sciatica, chronic sciatic pain. So I stopped running when I was 35. Didn't run for 20 years, was on painkillers, anti-inflammatories, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories for donkey's years. Gradually weaned myself off all the drugs, and all of a sudden the pain had kind of disappeared. And I was sat in a pub 8 years ago at the age of 55 with a middle-aged mate of mine who used to run the Singapore Marathon back when I was doing them. And we were both looking very middle-aged, very overweight, with a couple of pints in front of us. And one of us had the brilliant idea, why don't we run another marathon by the time we're 60? That will give us 5 years to get back to being fit, and we should do it. Great idea. Email went round all the friends, because a whole load of us are still in contact. We're in Singapore, Thailand, Australia, America, the UK, Philippines. We're all in contact. It's a great idea. Well, I'm the only one that actually got back into running. So I've run one marathon. I've done quite a few halves. And in that process, I suddenly found out that because I can now run a bit longer because I'm working from home and I've got an office job. I'm not going offshore and stuck somewhere. My times were actually very close. Yeah. So I've just run a half marathon that is only 14 seconds slower than one I ran in 1990.
Wow.
So you can see that all that tells you is that in 1990 I wasn't a very good half marathon runner.
You've been too modest there, Alan. You've been too modest there.
But so my next attempt at that comes up in 3 days' time on Saturday. So that's really, I got 7 or 8 years ago I got back into it. I've successfully managed to pick a runner's injury. I've done them all: pulled hamstrings, plantar fasciitis, both feet, tendonitis. I've had a knee operation. Weekend warrior stuff.
Absolutely.
But love it. It keeps me sane.
I can tell that it's funny that you say you used to do it, then you didn't. Now you're back into it, and the irony that you were there, because it was. I was planning on starting, funnily enough, at 55 as well, but at the age of 54 and a bit, a friend of mine came up with a challenge to raise money for his charity to do a half marathon, and that's how I got into it. But yeah, so similar ages. But I think the half marathon you've got this weekend, is that in Perth?
No, it's in a town called Bustleton, which is about a 3-hour drive south on the beach. So it's a beach path. It's a coastal path. Yeah. But Bustleton's a nice town down south. So my wife and I are going down there. Got a couple of nights. Bustleton's also where they have the Ironman. So,
wow.
So the Perth Ironman isn't in Perth.
Western Australia,
the Western Australian Ironman is actually held down in Bustleton, and it's got a jetty which is, I think it's about 1 kilometre or 1.5 kilometres long. There's a jetty swim where people go out and round the jetty. That's actually happening the same weekend. So that's this. I think that's this Sunday.
Wow. So I need to remember, as you may know, I've done a 70.3 Ironman. So I've got to clarify it's the half, not a full Ironman. Have you thought? Obviously, if it's just down the road from you, have you thought of doing an Ironman? And you can give an honest answer. Go on. You can be straight talking as you want.
There's one problem. I'm a rubbish swimmer.
Yeah. Everyone. I'm a rubbish swimmer too. Just have a go. Although you'd be swimming in the sea, wouldn't you?
Yeah. No, Donato, in Australia, you cannot be a rubbish swimmer and do that because the worst Australian swimmers are great swimmers by everybody else's
Yeah,
standards.
I can imagine. But
Yeah,
here in
I've done
Britain, it's the
duathlons.
taking part, duathlon. Okay, the
So
cycling
I
and
did a
running.
couple of duathlons when I was living in Singapore
Yeah.
in the late 80s, early 90s. I did a couple of duathlons that were
Mm, mm.
6, 45, and 6, and I really enjoyed those. Those are great
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. Because I do recall, obviously, you mentioned you're in Singapore and in a time you're in Indonesia as well. So you're a well-travelled guy, and let's say you could represent quite a few countries for the Commonwealth here, and as well as England. Although when I look at the list, it shows United Kingdom. For some reason, it doesn't break it down to England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, which what it is. That's how the nations compete in the Commonwealth. My
Yeah.
understanding is, whereas Australia is one big conglomerate. You know.
Oh yes, it's a big place, and it's kind of hard. A lot of people struggle. I work for an Italian company, and I chat with
Mamma
people.
mia!
Exactly. You've just spoken more Italian than I can. And I chat to people over there, and they're like, "Well, I'm Western Australia. Haven't left it for 2 years, but I've still managed to do 3.5 hour flights on commercial airliners and not leave the state."
Yeah. Wow.
So Western Australia, if I fly from Perth up to there's a town called Kununurra in the north, it's the equivalent pretty much of flying Aberdeen to Rome.
Wow.
And you don't
That,
leave the state. Now you leave the climate changes
yeah. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
You go up there, tropical saltwater crocodiles and stuff, and different vegetation and climate. It's just radically different. But you haven't actually left Western Australia.
Crocodiles. That sounds a bit wild out there.
Oh man. Oh yeah. The big salties, they're an interesting thing, and it's great to go running. I go up there. I'm a fanatical fisherman, right? That's my
Yeah.
real passion. The running is something I do to keep
Uh-huh.
fit. Fishing's what I'm really about. And when I've been up there recently, I've still gone on runs, and it's great because they're just sand tracks. You're out on 4-wheel drive tracks. There's no tarmac at this fishing place I go to, and of course, there's kangaroos leaping across the road everywhere. You get up at dawn to go for a run. It's cool. And you're dodging kangaroos. And at one point, I found a little a track down to the river. And of course, you can't go near the river's edge. It's too dangerous.
Well, a crocodile would jump out, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yes. So they lie in wait for cattle and kangaroos to come down to drink. So when it's really hot, they have to come and drink water, otherwise they die. Well,
Yeah.
the crocs are just waiting there for dinner.
Waiting for dinner. Oh, dinner. Yummy, yummy. I've seen too many. Well, obviously, as a child, and I'm sure you did too, we used to watch Skippy, the
Yes.
bush kangaroo. What's up, Skip?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's showing our. That was from the 70s, I think. And but yeah, I certainly have seen many images. Not so much maybe saltwater crocodiles, but in Florida, I'm guessing they're more freshwater crocodiles.
They're the alligators.
Yeah, alligators. And I've seen some images, and obviously back in the day, I used to watch Tarzan as well, movies, and I know how the crocs work. They're clever little buggers, and they bide their times, don't they?
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And of course,
absolutely.
once they get you into the water, that's it.
You've got to be a very, very lucky person to get away.
I've seen some stories where of backpackers getting away from a crocodile, but they've lost something, maybe the odd limb or two, but somehow they managed to get away from the croc. But it's fascinating. I mean, it's a country that really fascinates me, and maybe one day I will visit there if they let me in. But
the Gold Coast Marathon in Queensland. So Gold Coast is just not far from Brisbane, just south of Brisbane. That's what I'm planning on running in July, and that's what they call I guess they call gold standard marathon in Australia. It's the biggest one. I mean, there are bigger races. There's a thing called the City to Surf, which goes on in Sydney, in Perth. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if Melbourne's got one as well. I know Sydney has a big City to Surf. Yeah. But the Gold Coast is one that I'm looking at, which is that's the flat one.
Because A few years back, one of my children, I say children, they're young adult, they're all young adults now, but one of them was doing the tour of Southeast Asia and was looking to go to Australia. So I booked a half marathon to coincide with when they were there, but that didn't happen. This is pre-COVID, by the way, so there weren't any travel restrictions, but she ended up changing her tour itinerary, and I didn't go over there. But a number of people have mentioned to me about the Gold Coast Marathon, and also I think there's one in Melbourne within a couple of weeks of each other. So they said, if you're flying all the way out here, although I wouldn't, anyone who's watching, I wouldn't recommend running 2 marathons in a short period of each other, or certainly racing them, as I've found to my expense. At our age, it takes time to recover. So maybe for the experience, but I don't know whether I could do Melbourne and Gold Coast within 2 weeks of each other, as much as I'd like to. Maybe a half or something, or 2 halves. A tale of 2 halves, game of 2 halves.
Well, the Gold Coast, they do a gem, right? So it's a weekend of running. So you can do the half marathon on the Saturday and the marathon on the Sunday. And people do it.
I know.
There's a special prize for the winners, and it's your combined time.
Wow. I do know. I mean, there are some people who have some great endurance, and it takes a skill. And obviously there's people out there who it's not about the time, it's about the finishing. But I do have a friend here in Worcester who's literally back from doing the Disney series. So his was 5K, 10K, half marathon, and he did do the whole set. And he's got the medals of the whole set. And there are people who go, because this is in Disneyland, Florida. And I think it was the Florida one, as opposed to the LA one. So, Florida. And there are people who, it's like a pilgrimage. And I'm guessing there's people who, as we know in the running community, that do certain things as a pilgrimage. So I'm guessing the Gold Coast, because the Gold Coast is an iconic location in the world. I mean, it was randomly, as we talk about the Commonwealth, it was the last Commonwealth, wasn't it, at Brisbane? Or was it the one before? There was definitely a Gold Coast Commonwealth Games
No,
in
definitely
recent times. It might have been in the past 10 years.
Yeah, not so long ago.
It's probably not the one before, but the one before that. So it might have been 8 years
Delhi,
ago.
Glasgow, Delhi. Has it been the Gold Coast? I don't know.
Anyway,
you caught me out on that one. You've caught me out on that one. It's
one of those. We'll do it. We'll do a quiz towards the end of the recording, Alan. But, fingers on buzzers.
Other people can obviously answer that one, because I can't, mate.
Fingers on buzzers. Bzz, leave it in the comments below. And obviously, because this is going out on YouTube, people can leave comments, questions, queries, whatever they want. This is the wonders of the internet. But the as I say, pilgrimages. And then there are people who. There's one friend of mine who was helping me when I got started in running, and a lot of people helped me out when I got started, and some very experienced runners. And there was one guy, I think he'd done his 100th marathon before I'd started running. So he does these things. You may have heard of quadzillas. Have you heard of quadzillas?
No.
So, and I asked him when he was doing, because he does a marathon every week. Yeah. And my question to him, and maybe your question as well, Alan, and everyone who's listening, is, what training do you do to run a marathon? And he's not one of these plodders, he doesn't sort of get round in 7-8 hours. He gets them done and dusted in 4 hours, and consistently around 4 hours every week, week in, week out. I think he's now on 370, whatever. So there's this thing called a quadzilla. Now, obviously, we've all heard of Godzilla. And obviously, you're out in the Pacific, so Japan and all that. But it's not that type of thing.
I've seen the statue in Tokyo, mate. I've been there.
Ah, right. Hey. So that's a marathon we'll have to do. Hey, Alan, we could maybe do that and get down to Tokyo.
Tokyo would be epic. Yeah.
When Tokyo opens up, because there's another runner I know who had a job lined up. He's Japanese speaker, Brit, and he's not been able to go there because they locked down literally 2 weeks before he was due to start his job. So he's been stuck here in Britain and not being able to get to Japan. But anyway, quadzilla, Godzilla. So a quadzilla has a quad 4. So he has a day job. So I asked him his training. He said his day job is his training. So he's I think he's a fitter, a plumber, electrician type person. So he's manual labor. And he says that keeps him fit. But I think once you get into a cycle of running 26.2 miles every weekend, your body gets into a certain routine. So probably just a few easy jogs during the week. But a quadzilla, he'll take the Friday and Monday off. So can you guess what it is?
Yeah,
It's
4
4
marathons.
days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 marathons, 4 days. And then you get a special shirt, special medal and all that type of stuff. But yeah, it's almost insane what some people do. But then I guess, on the theme of, as I loosely come to what we're talking about, what unites us as people. And it was great to hear your story, how you found my YouTube channel, and just Google. Thank you, Google,
Yes.
for connecting us. But
I won't tell you what exactly I typed in Google that came up with a slightly older than the average running YouTuber, but I did do it.
I'd dread to think, yes, there may be children watching this, so we won't discuss about what other things may have came up. But obviously, I wouldn't have been in on those other links. But maybe another day. But anyway, it's 50 coffees, by the way. Yeah, not 50 shades of grey. Yeah, so 50 coffee adventure. But
you talk about all those marathons, though. You look at Kevin Sinfield, the rugby league player, who, for his mate Rob Burrows, ran 7 marathons in 7 days.
Yep.
Eddie Izzard, the comedian.
Yeah.
Didn't he do 50 in 50 days?
He done a lot. Yeah. I
thought it was 50.
It was 50. Yeah, it was a lot, and he did put his body through a lot. But again, I think a lot of it's all about mental toughness, and I guess in a way, certainly for us, when we look around the world and society in general, and the reason why I wanted the topic of what unites us is because we have gone through, and I said it won't be a COVID debate, we have gone through 2 years of shit. To be honest, there's no sugarcoating it. It's been dark times, and there's things that have been going on that you only have to, like, if I went on to Twitter right now, there'll be the whole half of Twitter will be moaning, complaining, and attacking each other, and you sort of wonder what is it with people. Some of the things I've read where they wish death upon other people just because they have different beliefs, I don't get that at all. So there's a lot of division out there. So I'm looking at what unites us, because we are all united in a common thing, apart from, and obviously for us, we have a common interest, which brings people together. So in terms of what unites us, Alan, is it finding things that we have in common rather than looking at things that we don't have in common, because we can, with, things about the racism or religious beliefs or whatever, those are, and also sexual beliefs or whatever, those are the standard 3 that people can discriminate. But now we live in a world where people are discriminatory and segregating of people of all sorts of things. I don't like that guy because he drinks coffee from Nicaragua, and Nicaragua are full of whatever troops. And I'm thinking, can we, or I don't buy a certain brand of running shoes because they use child labor. It's almost like people are looking for a fight. Fight. If I tweet something, the amount of people who make a positive attempt to misinterpret what I've said, and obviously with me being, my first language is Italian. I know I've been educated here in Britain and speak English, and I should know better when I'm saying some things in English, but sometimes I don't put a comma in the right place, or I don't type it correctly, and people misinterpret it, whether it's deliberate or not. But what unites us, is the common thread as humans. You're there, the opposite side of the world. I know you are from England originally, but you've seen a lot. You've traveled a lot, Alan. You've been on oil rigs in Singapore. I don't know what you were doing in Indonesia. What Italian company you're working for now? Is it still in the oil or gas trade?
Yeah. I'm still involved in the. It's not just oil and gas. It's geothermal, the energy business.
Okay. Yeah.
I've got to go back a long time here, because my parents met in India during the Second World War.
Wow.
My mum was in the army, believe it or not, stationed in India, and my dad was in the Air Force. When I got the chance of a job and was told, we've got offices all over the world. Where do you want to go? I immediately thought, I want to get as far away from Britain and I want to go somewhere. So Australia was actually a choice, and I purposely didn't take it because they spoke English. So I originally wanted to go to Latin America, but the company didn't have any vacancies there. So they came to me and said, we've still got vacancies in Singapore. Would you go? I didn't even know where Singapore was on the map.
Did you not know that? Have you not heard of the Singapore sling?
Oh, I mean,
Orchard Drive, or is it Orchard Road? You know, come on.
Orchard Road. I'd heard about the fall of Singapore from my parents in the war because it was such a big deal. But I tell you, I still couldn't pinpoint. I'd watched all the John Wayne films about the Philippines. I had no idea that the whole war in the Pacific with the Americans. I couldn't put all the jigsaw pieces. Okinawa up there, Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia. I couldn't put it all together. Of course, as soon as I looked at the map, I went, "Oh, it all makes sense
there
now."
It is. Yeah.
So you've seen all the bits, right? The King and I. We've all seen the film. We've all seen it.
Yeah.
Couldn't spatially put them together. So I said to my parents, I said, I've got a chance for 1 year contract overseas, Singapore. What do you think? And they both went, I think they partially wanted to get rid of me, but they both just said, somebody's willing to pay you to go and live in a different place and experience it. Go.
Yeah.
So I just jumped at the chance. So I've been very fortunate everywhere I've been. I lived in Indonesia 3 different times. I've spent years living over there. Biggest Islamic country in the world. I've had nothing but a great time. Met great people. Still got lots of good friends there. Had a wonderful time living there. My daughter, both my children were born in Singapore when I was back living in Singapore for a spell. So I flitted between Singapore, Indonesia, back to Singapore, into Indonesia, back to Singapore over the course of 20 odd years. My daughter came home from school one time telling me there was something like 32 kids in her classroom at school. And I think there were it's either 26 or 28 nationalities.
Wow.
So both my kids were brought
Great
up.
diversity.
Yeah. Both my kids were brought up completely colorblind, in terms of the children that, they mixed with, there was everything.
You just see people, don't you?
Yeah. And I used to love going to places and not being able to speak a word of the language, getting off a plane, jumping in a taxi, going somewhere, and purposely going to places that were different, where I wasn't speaking English with lots of other people. I'd go to towns and I'd avoid the restaurants full of backpacking tourists and go off somewhere else with the locals and try and speak the language very, very badly and make a fool of myself. But, so it's a mixture. I think I love the idea. I've got fishing buddies all over the world. I'm now meeting running people, Strava. I've met people in Germany, the UK, the US now through Strava, where we've got that running thread. Yeah. But everyone's got a different background and a different story, and I think that's just fantastic.
Exactly. You follow me on Strava, yeah, Alan?
I don't actually know.
Oh no, you bad boy.
I don't.
Checking,
slap.
I wanted to check because so many people request or whatever. I was trying to keep track of who's here and where and what.
Well, I promise you, Donato, I will follow you on Strava on one condition. On one condition, you have to follow me.
I'll follow you. Well, that's what I was asking because I normally follow back people that I've met or know. So obviously, as you can imagine, it's another internet and application. So I get lots of requests from people who I don't know, and it's fine. I check that it's a legitimate account, that it's not some spam account or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I let them in. But yeah, for me, you see, when I see things similar to you, obviously I'm from an ethnic minority when I was brought up in Britain, and yeah, as you can imagine, but being in an area where there wasn't many overseas people, and we'd be subjected to racial abuse and all sorts. Whilst I may be a white European, I'm not Anglo-Saxon white, and obviously with the name that I have, so it was easy picking. So quite different. But when you see people, and for me, having travelled all over the world, I haven't been down as far as Australia. I've been to Singapore and Hong Kong and Mauritius, as you do, and India, backpacking around India. You get to see people as just people. It doesn't matter what colour, sex, background, what clothes they're wearing. It doesn't matter, as long as they're not giving it that and being offensive. They're people, and most people I see when you go traveling, there's always a smile and a handshake and open arms. I've never seen people. It's interesting you touched on about being in Indonesia, very strong Muslim country. One of my previous girlfriends was a Muslim girl, and I'm a Christian guy, and we got on fine. There was never any religious issues, so I think maybe, going back, maybe there's some sectors of society who thrive on dividing people. Do you think?
Oh, I think there's certainly a lot of people who are, maybe threaten's the wrong word, but not so welcoming to difference.
Yeah.
And of course, I think that, the modern generation is even more open to it with the whole diversity, inclusivity thing, etc. So my kids are in their 20s. I constantly get a lesson from them about, Dad, you can't say that. Dad, that's out of order. They both put me on straight and narrow. But so how did you or your family end up from Italy? So whereabouts in Italy? Let's hear a bit of your story, Donato.
Yeah, a bit about me. Well, in where they're from in Italy is down south. So so very much back in soon after the Second World War, and both my parents lived through the Second World War, and they've got lots of horrific stories about it, as you can imagine, because it was first occupied by the Germans, whilst Italians were allies with Germany. The way my parents described it was very much an occupation. So, the Germans were ruling, and yes, there was some Italian army who were allies with the Germans, but I don't think majority of Italians wanted them there. And obviously they then saw the Allies sweeping through their country and then being liberated and so on. So soon after the Second World War, there's a lot of poverty and not much work, and similar to other parts in Europe. So a lot of people in Italy, I think the biggest export was the people. So from around the 40s, 50s, a lot of them were immigrating. Funny enough, my dad nearly ended up in Australia. So his parents applied to go to Australia. 11 siblings, yeah. So 11 children.
Good Catholic family.
Yeah, good Catholic family. Unfortunately, because they had medicals, I think one of the siblings failed a medical or something, and so the family didn't immigrate to Australia. Although one of my uncles ended up in Australia as a prisoner of war. There you go. He was fighting in North Africa, and for the Italian army conscripts, they didn't have any choice, and got captured by British Army and sent to Australia. There you go, prisoner of war. I don't know whether it was the prison near where you are now, but
it's funny because
there's a lot of Italians in Australia, who stayed.
I'm actually in Fremantle, which is
I know Fremantle,
town of Perth.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've got the cappuccino strip, phenomenal Italian coffee culture in Fremantle. And a lot of people came over. The fishing industry, a lot of Italians in the fishing industry that came over, and a lot of them came. I mean, there's been Italians here from before the war, but after the war, an awful lot of Italians came here. And started up, in the fishing industry, the market gardens. A lot of the market gardens around here, vegetable growing and what have you, was all started by Italian immigrants, or there are a lot of Italian immigrants involved in it.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember going over to New York City Marathon and going to Staten Island, which shows a list of all the immigrants where they all went through, And there's quite a few with my surname, as you can imagine. It's quite a common surname from the Campania region, or Campania Puglia. So where my parents were is literally on the border of the two provinces. And but me mum left Italy first and got a job in Birmingham, of all places. And but obviously they fell in love in their village in Italy, my mum and dad. And me mum said that there was about a few years gap before my dad then found some work to come to Britain, because back in them days you couldn't go to any country unless you had a job. You had to have a work permit, and both of them have their alien cards, although my mum's passed away. So it was a little card, and similar in size to this, and it'd have their photo, and it said alien. Yeah. And they would have to report to the police station every week with their papers and documents. And again, I guess there's a joke there now, isn't there, with what's going on in certain parts of Australia? But hey, we'll park that one. So this is back in the 50s. So yeah, they had to produce their documents. So, you know, no illegal immigrants or anything like that. So, but again, what I found when I was in New York, one of the biggest exports from Ireland in the 40s and 50s was the people as well. So there's a lot of famine in Ireland. So various countries, and Italy's one of them. Why they chose England, I don't know. I think it was a case of where the work was, and certainly for me mother, she was working in a seminary in Birmingham, and then my dad, when he came over, he found some job in Birmingham, working in a hospital as a nurse. And despite neither of them being able to speak any English whatsoever, like yourself, you know, when you pack up and go somewhere, you cannot speak the native tongue. They literally just turned up. My mum would tell me the story that she'd get to a bus and she'd have the address written on, you know, so show it to the bus driver, and the bus driver would shout to them, "We've arrived here," and just go down there, left, right, whatever. So that's how they ended up. So Birmingham, they got married, and then I arrived and was born there, and all my siblings born there, grew up in that area, but then was educated in Wales, of all places. So I went to university in Wales, and although Worcester is literally just across the border,
just across the border
in England, and but yeah, I mean, I think a long time ago I done a list, and I love traveling, and for my children, whilst I'm divorced now, certainly for my children, you know, I felt the need to educate them through travel. And we've visited some amazing countries, and everywhere we've been to has been an experience and a half, to the point where for my 60th, my children gave me a wonderful gift of a booklet and all the photos of the travels that we've been to. Both, fantastic. You know, camper van. So if you want to buy a camper van, I'm now putting it up for sale. We've had 8 years. 8 years I've had that van, literally to this month, February. In fact, it might even be this week in February that I bought it 8 years ago. But even before that, we were traveling to some amazing countries, you know, like Egypt, Morocco, Iceland, obviously Italy a number of times, Sweden, America. You know, I took my daughter to New York City Marathon. My son had come over to LA with me. We just love the travel. And so much so that my kids have grown up that way that, as I say, my daughter went off traveling around Asia on her own. And that's how confident she was. I mean, she was flying over to see me in the Channel Islands on her own when she was only 12, 13. Obviously guided, so there'd be a member of staff that would guide her onto the plane. But she would be on the plane on her own and then fly over. But great traveller. And my son also, you know, they love travelling. I think one of the best lessons, if I was, and this is getting all philosophical, and what unites us is, I think the best education you can ever give your children is travel and people and meeting people, whether it's in one location. Obviously, your kids are fortunate enough where in that one classroom, you know, out of 30 odd pupils, 25 are all different countries. That's an incredible experience, because for a lot of people, and I think this is what causes some of the divisions, but what unites us is, in a way, the diversity. But then some people say there's a diversity, what causes the division. I don't really see that. I think people can get on whether they're the same ethnic group or not. It's nothing to do with ethnicity. It's to do with attitudes and beliefs. And I think a lot of people are afraid of change, and naturally so. I mean, I worked in change management for nearly 40 years. You know, people don't like change. You know, I like my cup of tea, but I'm not going to drink a cup of coffee. Or I like my beer, but I'm not going to have a glass of wine. And whereas for me and my kids, it's about trying new stuff. I mean, when we were in Morocco, we went to a cookery class, just the three of us, to learn how to cook Moroccan. And it was great. You know, we were with some Moroccan chefs, and we were having a whale of a time, you know, something different as opposed to going on a beach and just lying and sunbathing. But and then going around geysers in Iceland, you know, meeting some great Icelandic people. You know, I
just got to interrupt you for an ever so brief second, and
go for it,
and just say Hello, darling. That's all right. That was my wife
Hello,
just drifting
darling.
through in the background. So
Hello, wife. She can come in and say
I,
hello.
I sent her a message saying I'm going to be on a call in the living room when you come home. So she
She can
skulks
come in and
around.
say hello if she wants.
I'm having a chat with a running bloke in the UK. You're off to book club. Okay, all right, yeah, fair enough.
Book club.
Yes,
There's
the girls are having their book club. I'm not sure there's a lot of book reading goes on all the time, but I know there's wine and cake involved.
You see, now there's a perfect example of what unites them is that whilst it's the book or a book that gets them there, it's the people interacting, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The book's
Having
an
a common
excuse.
interest. Is it that simple, Alan? Is life that simple? All you have to do is find people with a common interest, common thoughts, and we all get on. Is it that simple?
I'm not sure it's that simple. There's arseholes everywhere.
Wow,
You know,
you're proper straight talking. You've obviously been in Australia quite a while there. Yeah?
but I think if you're the right kind of person, you very quickly realise that what's the point in tolerating negative people? Just get them out of your life. Surround yourself with positive people. Life actually becomes very enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah.
And you don't all need to have the same common thread. You can have 10 people together and it can be, well, these two know each other, those two know each other, those two know each other, they've got a common, you get together. But because you know somebody, you just go, well, I get on well with you, so you've got another linkage, but that other person must be okay because you get on well with them and I get on well with you. So therefore, and you accept it. And you don't have to, I mean, let's face it, not everyone likes everything about everybody.
No.
But why dwell on the negatives? Just, let that go. Let that go. Accept the positive part. They say, oh, I like this person because of X, Y, Z. Great. I'll forget the other 23 letters of the alphabet.
Yeah. A bit like the song from Frozen, isn't it? Let it go.
Exactly.
Let it
Exactly.
go. I know.
Yeah. Why dwell on the negative when there's so much that could be positive?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. Don't get on well with everybody, but
I'm guessing that's how we've connected basically, and why you'd volunteer, because you watch my weekly vlogs, and it's literally just
I have
me
passed
chatting.
I have passed a few comments. I don't think any of them critical.
No. I mean, you've probably seen some people, because whilst I'm not a massive YouTuber, 99% of the comments is all on board, fully flowing and supportive, positive. And there's the 1%, which I would say are critical. But for me, and again, some people get a bit sensitive. Oh, they're haters and this and that. And they're not haters. I don't get anyone hating on me, certainly not on the YouTube. I've had one or two trolls on other platforms, but that's another story. Anonymous accounts and all that type of stuff. And people blocking me because they don't like me saying it how it is. Maybe I have Australian roots, but us Italians as well, we tend to say it as it is. We don't suffer fools gladly. But I'm with you 100%. I mean, there was that, as I mentioned, the song Frozen, Let It Go, Let It Go. There was a song from the 60s about eliminate the negatives, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negatives. You've got to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negatives. See, I should have been a singer, maybe a bad singer. And obviously right now I'm all bunged up because of my sinus issues. But hey, I think you're dead right, Alan. It's about being positive, but there's also the other side where, and I tend to, is you get some what I call fake positive people, and toxic positive, I think, is some buzzwords that people are throwing about, where it's almost like, you've got to be 100% positive all the time. I don't believe that at all, because you're probably on some drug if you're 100% positive. Yeah, life absolutely has ups and downs, but it's knowing, what makes us is how we deal with the downs and how we, get back from that and get back up to the ups. Because that's life, really, isn't it? I mean, you've seen it,
And,
been there,
and
got the
running
T-shirt, Alan.
running epitomises it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, there isn't a single guy on a running channel that I've seen on any of the YouTube channels who has not at some point gone, I've had to pull out of this race, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, I've got a niggle here, I've
yeah,
injured
yeah,
myself
yeah,
there, I've got something wrong.
yeah.
And I mean, at the elite level, we'll watch things like the Olympics and you see some poor bloke does a false start and you think, that's 4 years of work
I know.
has
Oof.
just gone out in a picosecond. And you
Yeah,
think, how is that person feeling?
yeah,
That has
yeah,
got
yeah,
to
yeah,
be heartbreaking,
yeah.
heartbreaking. And then you get down to the weekend warrior level where, you twist an ankle, pull something, get a cold or what have you, where the kind of level I'm at. And it's, you just carry on, don't you? You just have to.
Keep calm and carry on. If you were to give, and I haven't prepped you on this, Alan, or anything like that, so because we're just sort of chatting. If you were to give a tip to anyone, obviously you're worldly wise, you've traveled around lots of countries. How do you? Because a lot of people, and for me, sometimes people see me where I am, and they don't see where I've come from. And a lot of people assume I was a top athlete at school, which is very kind of them. I wasn't. And a lot of people assume I was always this conversant and happy to talk with people and straight. I wasn't. I've learned this. I've had to, overcome fears, and even doing this sometimes can be a bit nerve-wracking with people you've never met before, and you don't know what they're going to say or do. But we've learned. Is there a tip or wise words that you say, of opening conversations with people? What do you, whether it be online, or you mentioned Strava, you've connected with people, or social media is quite a connecting type of environment. But if you see people when you're out on a run, or you're going walking, or you're in a cafe, how do you, if you see someone you think, because there's a lot about mental health issues and stuff, sometimes you start a conversation with someone. How do you recommend starting a conversation? It can be as simple as you want, or complicated as you want.
I mean,
how do you start a conversation with a stranger?
depends on the situation, obviously. A classic one is if you're in a shop or somewhere, somebody's got the name badge on. Well, doesn't everyone actually like being recognised by name?
Yeah.
So it's not just, oh, thank you. Somebody hands you a burger and it's like, thanks, Liz. Thanks, Fred. Really nice of you. If you bump into somebody, you're waiting at a bar for a drink. I'm never in a hurry. Let somebody else go first. They'll always turn around and say thank you.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, you're welcome. Great. Not a problem. How you doing? And that's it. Politeness. Just, who doesn't like somebody being polite?
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, and with a smile. I mean, come on, it's I'm annoying as hell when I run because I say hello to everybody. I say good morning because I hate running in the morning, but in summer here it's too hot to run at lunchtime or in the afternoon, in the evening.
Yeah.
So I'm getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning going out because it's the coolest. It's still about 20 degrees centigrade.
Yeah.
And by the time you get
that's
home,
hot for running.
Well, that's cool here for summer. That's if you go out on a long run and you leave it a bit late and don't get out of the house until say 7 o'clock, and you're coming back at 9 o'clock, it can be 30 degrees by the time you get home.
Yeah.
And it has been the last few weeks. So I go along run morning. Nearly everyone replies, "How you doing?" And then you start seeing regulars that you just nod and chat.
Yeah.
And then I've bumped into people at parkrun. Hey, I've run past you about 10. Next thing you know, you get chatting.
Yeah.
But we don't all have to be aggressive all the time and negative.
It's simple.
I'm not positive all the time, but when I'm
Yeah.
not feeling good, I don't go up and start random conversations with strangers.
No,
because it's not a good time to do
Yeah.
it.
And you're not looking for an argument with anyone, but for some reason, the keyboard warriors feel the need to do that. But it is that simple, isn't it? A smile and a chirpy hello or a good morning. And it reminded me of this morning's run where I tend to see similar people if I'm going out at the same time, same route.
Yep.
And when I'm smiling, even the dog walkers smile at me and say good morning, and we say good morning. And but the thing that I remember most, and we'll sort of closing it on this, is that when I tend to do a walk back for 5-10 minutes before back to my house. So I do door to door. I don't drive to a location, run, and then drive back. I start from outside my front door, and I was literally just crossing the road, and there was an elderly gentleman, and he looked very distinguished. He had a hat on, and a proper coat, and a poppy, and some medals. I thought, oh, yeah. And all I said, he sort of turned his head, and because obviously he was looking at me, and I said, oh, good morning. And he said, good morning. And he was very chirpy. And I just says, how are you? And that's it. And then off he went. He was telling me his life story, and that he's doing something in commemoration of the Queen. This Saturday or following Saturday, they're having some display. Yes, there you go. So, and he's the leader of them all. And he invited me along. He says, oh, why don't you come along? It'd be great to see you. And all I said was, good morning, and how are you? And he started the conversation. So for some people, that I think, especially, we keep going back, what's been happening, people are almost, we're human, we're designed, we've got 2 eyes, 2 ears, and a mouth. We're designed to communicate and interact with people, aren't we? Same as with running, we're designed to walk. We've got 2 legs, walking, running. That's how we're designed. So we're designed to be social animals, and I think sometimes people overcomplicate it, don't they?
Yeah, but I spend far too much time at a computer because of work. So a lot of my work, for 2 years, I've not travelled. I'm a business development sales guy at the moment. I'm a geologist by training originally, but so I'm usually meeting clients, chatting to people, trying to flog stuff.
Yeah.
I do wonder how much just using a phone, I'm amazed when you go out and at dinner and there's like people have got together and they're all sat there on heads down.
You and me both.
You got 6 youngsters sat at the table and they're not even talking to each other. They're all on their phones. And you're thinking, well, what? Surely you've gone out to meet up with these people to learn, and interact. Or maybe I'm just missing it. Maybe they're just catching up, clearing their day. I don't know, but it just,
when you see couples, 2 people at a table, dinner table, both on their mobile phones, or one of them's chatting on the mobile phone. I mean, how rude is that?
I understand you can catch people at that moment. I mean, my wife and I, we'll be sat having a chat, and somebody will say, "Oh, well, such and such." Oh, blimey! Wait a minute, I better check that. Oh, we've got to do something. Yeah, let me just get on the phone and check. Can you just? And we've done it, but we don't. I mean, I am not allowed to do it as a habit. I can assure you. My wife gives me a right clip round the ear. But generally speaking, we're not. But occasionally it happens. I mean, I also, I work in a 24/7 business. So I have conference calls in the evening, work calls come up, people do try and get hold of me. Mm-hmm. So occasionally we'll go out and I'll say to my wife, look, I'm expecting a call at 7:00, but guess what? Yeah. We've got dinner with friends. Yeah. I will just take myself out for half an hour on that call and I will leave. Yeah. I'll go outside the restaurant, put my headphones in, and I will take my work call because it is actually important and I don't want to miss dinner.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, life goes on. You can't be damning of everyone all the time when you see that, but it's just such a common thing that you think, no, this can't. It's a bit more than So I don't know. It's a tough one as life is evolving, isn't it? Right before our very eyes.
I've seen some restaurants where you're supposed to all put the mobile phone into a tray and switch it off. So. But all I can say, Alan, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. You've been number one in our 50 coffee adventure. How random that it's the letter A for Australia. So we're going to do the A to Z of Commonwealth coffees. So for those watching, listening, it is this simple. I'd just love to connect with you as with Alan. And this is the first time we've chatted. It's been an absolute pleasure, Alan. And thank you so much for your time.
And if you don't get anybody for S, from Sri Lanka or Sweden or, I'll come back on and do Singapore for you because I lived there for nearly 20 years. So
I'm going to be doing all of the nations. So, we can bring you back again for that.
Well, only if you don't get somebody else.
Well, we can do another one anyway. But thanks again, Alan. You take
Not a
care.
problem.
All the best, and
Cheers,
we'll
Donato.
speak soon
Great
again.
chatting to you,
Cheers,
mate.
then.
Lovely chatting
Bye
to you.
bye. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.